Nice to hear one or two skylarks singing over the fields to my left and to your right. Behind me is Budby pumping station. I've left the car down there and I'm now walking up to Budby South Forest. Because we're in the last week of February and it's turned mild, although today's not as mild as I was hoping, I'm looking for a species which for me marks the start of the Coleoptera year. It's the most magnificent species. I just hope that at least one is out. Those of an ornithological nature may well be able to detect one of the most melodic bird songs that we have here in the UK and certainly here in Nottinghamshire. This is woodlark country. Everybody knows it's woodlark country here, so there's no point in me pretending that they don't exist. It's the most beautiful song, and around mid-February or even earlier the woodlark starts to sing. It's the most beautiful melodic and fluty notes, quite sorrowful sometimes. But regarding our quarry today, it is of course the oil beetle, the black oil beetle in this instance, Meloe proscarabeus. Quite a remarkable beetle. It should have been out maybe a couple of days. This is the third day of mild weather. Yesterday was really mild, and so I think a few would already be out and about. Going on previous years, they certainly will be. Usually it's about the 15th or 17th of February when these beetles make an appearance, given favourable weather. And that favourable weather doesn't have to be particularly sunny, just has to be mild. We have one. Well, we actually have two, because this isn't the one that I'd initially found. This one has just crawled into view, and this is a male. You do get a good chance now to have a look at that kinked antenna, which is distinguishable in males. I must admit that the two that I'm going to show you are larger than I expected them to be. They've clearly been feeding for a few days. What a nice start. Well, here's the second one, and looking at the antenna, it is again a male. They not only have those kinks in those antennae, but a couple of the segments of those antennae are considerably flattened and enlarged. Very obvious when you see these beetles. Absolutely fabulous things, and I love this day. I love coming to look for the first oil beetles. Absolutely love it. Perhaps seems surprising that these beetles are out so early. I'm glad they are. Always something to look forward to during the course of a winter through the cold weather. You know that in mid-February you can go out, if it's been mild enough, and start and look for these magnificent beetles. They're absolutely stunning things. It's still only mid-morning here at Budby South Forest. Temperature is 10 centigrade. It was 9 on the way here, and it's about 11 AM as I'm filming this. The sky is largely cloudy, although you can see the sun. The sun is trying to get through, but the temperature is keeping these slightly inactive. They're not a morning beetle, they're usually a beetle that want a bit of warmth. We have 3 known sites for this beetle now in Nottinghamshire. This is the original site, the first one to be found in Nottinghamshire for about 100 years. It then turned up at Newstead Abbey, and then last year, or the year before I think it was, turned up at a site in Clumber Park. Where else is it in Nottinghamshire? There's certainly an old record for this beetle occurring probably as late as the 1970s. May well still be there, and that's at Bulwer Forest Golf Course, somewhere I really need to make an effort and get to. Well, I've just found a third rather inactive male oil beetle. Good chance to look at the antenna, but just look at the coloration on that bluish, almost violet tone to the beetle. This one's just off the one of the banks here. Don't normally find them like this. In this particular area, it's normally on the 2 banks of Spoil where you'll find oil beetles, but if you do visit Budby, look alongside any of the tracks at the western end. So we're on to 3 now. I'm going to have a wander around and just see what kind of total I can get. So another inactive oil beetle. I don't care how inactive they are though, they're just fabulous things to see. And we're lucky in Nottinghamshire that we now have 3 colonies, or populations should I say, that appeared in the last 10, 15, 20 years, almost from out of nowhere. It seems as though every small plane in Nottinghamshire is up in the air at the moment, but despite the noise of those engines, you can still hear woodlarks singing in the background. And I've come round now to a third of the banks that are on the western end of Budby, all banks of Spoil where it was scraped to create some bare ground habitat and to encourage heather to germinate and grow. And I'm not sure whether I've ever found oil beetles on this third bank, but there are 5 here today, including this chap. They've all been males. We're on to 8 oil beetles at the moment. The sun is continuing to try and find a way through the blanket of cirrostratus. Looks like we might get some blue sky, but at least we're doing well for oil beetles. Well, there are 4 oil beetles in this area. 1 is off screen, but the 3 you may be able to see. There's one pretty much right in centre. There's the larger one of the 3 walking roughly towards it, and then that one there. That takes us on to 12. If memory serves me right, we had 14 last year on the first date, which was earlier than this, but this is the kind of habitat that you'll find them in. Sort of rough, grassy. I think the grass may well be some of the bents. One is off, and the larger one, which is walked down into shot, is directly over our other oil beetle, which is there. Well, we have one grazing. This is the only one that I've seen grazing today. And they prefer the fresh, slightly broad-leaved grasses such as bents at the moment. They will eat fescues, but they prefer something a little bit more substantial. That's a fabulous shot. Again, we have a male. Just looking at the antenna, this view actually shows those inflated segments of antenna where the kink is. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. Look at the violet coloration on those legs there, those rear legs. Absolutely beautiful. All very fresh out, of course, these in the last day or so, some maybe even today. Oil beetles were discovered here on Budby in 2011 by Adrian Dutton and his wife. Dillis and I monitored this beetle every year, coming at least once or twice to monitor numbers. Had some really good counts years ago, and the beetle did sort of drop in numbers. That may have been because the population sort of started to be found more widely and started to spread out. These beetles, of course, can only move to new areas when in the larval stage and the larva grabbing onto the legs of a solitary bee and being taken further afield. There are records now from elsewhere on Budby, but from what I've seen, this western end is still the best bet to see this marvellous beetle. I will be going to check the colony at Newstead. I've not been for a number of years, but they were found there in good numbers, and they're in the car park area at Newstead Abbey. The most dangerous place this beetle could ever be because of, well, car tyres and footfall. If you see these at Newstead, please try and protect them. And if you see them here on Budby South Forest on the paths, give them the same protection. Well, very soon I'm going to make tracks for home. It's always such a pleasure to see this magnificent beetle. I'm very fortunate that it's only a few miles away from where I live. Now the sun has started to break through and we've got a bit of blue sky. This one is making the most of that sunshine. The beautiful black oil beetle. Although whenever you see it, you'll realise it's far from being black. A magnificent beetle to bring in the start of the coleoptera season, I always say. What a beauty.